Howdy everyone, and welcome back to The More You Grow. So I've decided I'm going to start a brand new project, and I thought what better time than now I can bring y'all along through every step where we can do this together. And I'm really excited because it just came in the mail. And like I said, I want y'all to be a part of every step of this, so I waited until now to unbox this with all of y'all. So let's get started. So here we go, let's unbox this thing. I've really wanted to do this for many years now, so this is a really exciting moment for me. I'm really glad y'all can be here to be a part of this with me. Let's open this up here. Okay, drum roll please. Ta-da! Packing peanuts! Just kidding, it's in the packing peanuts. Okay, so here is the main attraction right here. Mushrooms. We are going to grow our very own mushroom logs. And this is really exciting because I've always wanted to be able to grow my own mushrooms, and what more natural way to do so than on logs, just from nature. What also comes in this kit is wax, and you'll see why we're going to use that in a minute, and also a syringe, and that's what's going to help us use our wax. So let's get to the next step. Before you start buying things online, you're going to want to ask yourself a few questions. First question, what kind of mushrooms do you want to grow? If you're wanting to grow things like button mushrooms and portobello mushrooms, those are not going to be grown the same way these are. Those grow in like beds and compost type material. What we're going to do in this video is going to be hardwood species like oyster mushrooms in this case. And they grow in things such as logs. Some people grow them in hardwood sawdust and climate controlled kind of situations. And that leads me to my next point. The second question you want to ask yourself, depending on what mushroom you want to grow, is what material does that grow in? Depending on the mushroom, it's going to grow on different kinds of wood. And since there's so many different varieties and combinations to go through, I'm just going to leave the link down in the description to a chart to where it tells you what species of mushrooms grow on what kind of wood. In this case, we're going to use oak for these oyster mushrooms, and this is just white oak. You want to avoid oaks like live oak because they contain a lot of different materials in them that inhibit fungal growth. And that's the third step you want to do in growing some mushroom logs, is once you find the right kind of wood, and what you want to do then is you want to cut it to the right lengths. You want to cut this, in this case you want to cut it to about 3 to 4 foot long, and about 4 to 6 inches in diameter. And then once you get it cut, you want to leave it on some kind of concrete surface to sit for a couple weeks. And that's kind of coming down to what was happening in the live oak, is these trees inside of them, they have actually chemicals to help protect them against fungal infections. So you want to cut these and let them sit for at least 2 weeks so those compounds can break down and it won't kill your mushroom spores. So let's get to the next step. So once you've decided on what kind of mushrooms you want to grow, and you have the right material sourced, cut to the right dimensions, and you've allowed it to set for at least 2 weeks, what you're going to want to make sure of is after it's set, that it has enough moisture inside of the logs for the mushroom spores to grow. And this is kind of the thing you got to watch out for, is if you're in a dry climate. And to do that, all you're going to want to do is let it soak in water, like in some kind of trash can or a wheelbarrow. Let it soak for 1 to 2 days, and it's preferable if it's unchlorinated water. If you have chlorinated water, all you have to do is let it set out overnight and all the chlorine will evaporate. So once you have all of the moisture you need in your log, the next step is to go ahead and put the spores in, which we're going to do next. Okay, I just wanted to run through the materials you're gonna need to be able to grow your own mushroom spores. You're gonna of course need your log and the mushroom spores, and these are in a plug style so they can be driven into the log. And that's the next thing you're gonna need. In this case, you're gonna need a drill and a 5/16 inch drill bit. And that's just because that's the size these plugs are. It'll say on the instructions with your plugs what size drill bit you're gonna need. And the next thing we need to do is hold the moisture in once we put the plugs in the log. And we're gonna do that using cheese wax. And this came with the mushroom spores that I bought. You can sometimes order those along with it. And what we're gonna have to do though is we're gonna have to melt it. So I'm kind of rednecking this a little bit, and you're gonna need, I'm just using a pan, and I found like the catering flames that they put on the bottom of catering trays. That's what all I've got to use for this, and I've got an oven mitt to hold on to it. Oh, and one thing I forgot, we're gonna need a mallet to drive the plugs into the log once we've drilled our holes. And of course, some way of lighting our little flame here. So it's actually recommended to use a double boiler for the wax, but like I said, I'm using what I've got. So now what we're gonna wanna do is we wanna drill our holes for our plugs. And you'll wanna space them about 4 to 5 inches apart, maybe 6. And you can also stagger them in rows to where you get more plugs per log. So you wanna drill these also about 1 inch deep to hammer the plugs all the way in. So let's do that next. Okay, so I've got all the holes drilled in the logs. Now we have to just hammer in our mushroom plugs, which this is what they'll look like. That white part there, that's actually the mushroom mycelium, which is kind of like the roots on a plant. And that's what's gonna spread out and colonize the logs. Once it's fully colonized, that's when they're gonna send out the mushrooms. And so now I'm just gonna hammer these in, and I'll get back to you once I get that done. Okay, so all the holes are plugged, and now all we got to do is put the wax covering over each of the plugs. And what this is going to do is it's going to help protect it from insects, and it's going to help to keep it from drying out. I'm also going to apply wax to each end of the log because it's really dry here, and that'll help keep the moisture inside of the log. So let me do that and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we've got all the hard work done now. Now all we have to do is wait and take care of the log until the mushrooms grow. And this could take up to 9 months before you get mushrooms. And until then, you're gonna wanna keep the log moist. I can't stress that enough. That's the most important part at this stage. And the best way I found to do that is periodic long soaks. And the way I'd recommend to do that is to get a deep container, something like a clean trash can or clean barrel of some kind, and use clean water to soak these for about 8 to 12 hours every 2 weeks. And that's gonna keep it properly moist inside the log for our mushrooms to grow. So there you go, guys. Our mushroom logs are starting on their way. And I'm so glad you could come along and be a part of this whole process with me. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave a link down in the description to a website that has a ton of additional information on how to start your mushroom logs and how to care for them. So that way you'll have that resource there if you want to try to do this yourself. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any more questions for me on anything I did along the way, be sure to leave those down in the comments along with any topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you can be there when all the new videos come out. So as always, until next time, I hope you'll join me right here on The More You Grow.